I'm not paranoid about germs, and anyone that says I am is lying. Hello and welcome. The final countdown is on. It's currently Tuesday, so it's now just 5 days until the Berlin Marathon. In this video, I'll talk about how my training week has gone as usual, although there's a lot less training to talk about now the taper has really set in. I'll also discuss my thoughts about how I'll approach the rest of the week, as well as the race itself. I'm also hoping to have a chance to post another video on Saturday, so make sure you're subscribed to be notified about that. My legs felt fairly decent last Monday, following the Worcester 10k and an extended warm down. This further confirmed to me that I probably had a better time in me if it wasn't for the stitch that struck in the final few kilometres. It was a strange, muggy morning, but the run felt good. However, after a day babysitting my young nephew, I was feeling pretty tired, so I again opted to drop my afternoon recovery run. Being fresh and rested is the key now during the taper, so forcing myself out there wouldn't have been helpful at all. Tuesday was a disaster of a morning. I was woken up at 5 AM by a noisy neighbour playing loud music. I then discovered there was an urgent work problem that needed dealing with. Despite this, I managed to head out at my usual time for an easy canal run, 8 miles. However, about a mile in, a wasp managed to fly up under my sunglasses and get trapped. It stung me right below my eye before I had a chance to take my sunglasses off and free it. Thankfully, I'm not allergic, but it did sting a lot. Given all that, I was quite pleased the run turned out okay. It was 8 miles, averaging 7:18 per mile, so not bad. It was a chilly morning on Wednesday for the final BAC session of the plan, and I wore long sleeves for the first time in months. The session was 10 minutes at marathon pace, and then 8 by 2 minutes at around 5k effort. For some reason I had it in my head that it was only 5 by 2 minutes, so when I loaded the workup on my watch and discovered I had an extra 3 reps to do, I was quite disappointed. The marathon pace section went well. I averaged 6:16 per mile, so right on track, and it felt controlled. Certainly better than I feel it remembering prior to Manchester last year. With that said, it always seems impossible you're going to manage that pace for a further 2.5 hours. You just have to trust that the taper will kick in and race day magic will happen. The 2-minute reps were a bit more of a struggle. I got a bit carried away on the first one and averaged 5:23 per mile pace. The second one went the opposite way. I only managed 5:54 per mile pace. I suspect that second one wasn't quite that slow and was at least partly due to GPS error, but nonetheless, the legs were feeling a bit flat and my breathing was feeling quite forced due to the cold air. I resolved to just tick off 1 rep at a time. The paces continued to vary, and after rep 6 I was really tempted to stop. However, I'm glad I pushed on, and I finished with 2 faster reps at 5:29 and 5:33 per mile pace. Overall, I averaged 5:37 per mile, which is slower than the 5:30 average I managed prior to Manchester. However, I did have the 10k still in my legs, and the pace wasn't terrible. And hey, I'd rather have the marathon pace section go well, given that's what I'm going to be running in Berlin. I had just one 5-mile recovery run to do on Thursday, so I took the opportunity to have a lie-in and then headed up to the gym in the afternoon for another treadmill and sauna combo. I managed 20 minutes in the sauna, which wasn't much fun, but hopefully it will help manage any potential warmer weather issues in Berlin. Friday was another easy run, but unusually I didn't head for the canal. I had strides to do, and running them along the canal felt like a bit of a risk, what with the narrow paths and dogs and cyclists about. I decided to run along the river instead, and it was a lovely morning. I was expecting to be suffering from taper legs by now, when they feel wooden and generally rubbish. However, they surprisingly felt pretty good. The strides went well, feeling relaxed and hitting a good pace, and the heart rate was nice and low too. Overall, it was 7.6 miles at an average of 7:06 per mile pace. Saturday was just another recovery, again on the treadmill with sauna afterwards. The legs felt reasonable, although my glutes did feel a little achy later in the day. Hopefully that's just taper jitters though. Sunday was the final long run of the plan, although given I was running several runs further than that during the week a few weeks ago, can you really call it a long run? Taper legs finally arrived for this one, and they felt wooden and flat the whole way. The pace was a bit slower than usual for an easy effort run at 7:31 per mile, and the heart rate was up too. It was a warmish morning though, so part of the reason for the dodgy heart rate might be due to sweaty wrists. Anyway, I wasn't too worried as the same run prior to Manchester came out at almost exactly the same heart rate and pace. To be honest, I was almost worried that I hadn't had a dodgy run like this during the taper, as weird as that sounds. On to this week, and yesterday was another recovery run followed by the sauna. The legs felt better this time thankfully, although the heart rate was still a touch high. Today was the final canal run, 8 miles averaging 7:21 per mile. Again the heart rate was high, but at least the pace was much better than Sunday. The legs felt pretty decent too, although I am again finding I've got slightly achy glutes. Hopefully it's just the legs repairing themselves after lots of heavy training, and come Sunday they'll be all good. They feel fine when running, so I'm not too worried. I now have just 3 runs left before the Berlin Marathon. Tomorrow I'll do a final practice session of 5 kilometers at marathon pace. I'll then take Thursday completely off. This is something of a superstition I've developed, although I'm not typically a superstitious person. It began when I took a Thursday off prior to my first ever sub-3 marathon at Brighton a few years ago. I hadn't planned to take the day off, but I was busy and just didn't get around to running. Ever since then, I've always taken that Thursday off and it seems to work well. It works especially well this time as I'm flying out to Berlin on the Thursday. Then on Friday, I'll do 5 or 6 miles at recovery pace once I'm in Berlin. I'm looking forward to exploring the Tiergarten on this one. I'm staying quite close by, which is handy, and it also means I can practice the route to the marathon start. Better safe than sorry, right? Finally on Saturday, I'll just do 3 miles or so with a few strides to keep the legs ticking over, ready for the big day. As usual during the taper, I've had a few iffy runs now, and the heart rate has been a bit high at times. However, I've done enough marathons now to know this is pretty normal during the taper. This always happens, so it doesn't worry me too much these days, although it's always a little disconcerting. I just have to trust the taper process. It worked before, and logically I know it will work again. I just need to tell the illogical side of my brain that's telling me my fitness is disintegrating to shut the hell up. At the moment, I'm wavering between feeling pretty confident about my 2:45 goal and not confident at all. Looking back through my training, it's gone really well, so I take a lot of confidence from that. But the doubts raised by my last few race performances are niggling away at the back of my mind. I just have to remind myself that I had similar doubts before Manchester last year. Back then I ran a great race and came very close to my goal, so given that my training has gone as well if not better than last time, there's no reason why it shouldn't again. The other worry is the weather. The temperature forecast has come down a little, but is still expected to get to around 17 degrees by midday, which is a touch warmer than I'd like. The wind isn't looking great either, 16 miles per hour with gusts up to 26 miles per hour. It is coming from the southwest, so at least it will be behind us for most of the final bit of the race. There's still time for it to change though, so fingers crossed. At the moment, my plan is to go out at 2:45 pace and absolutely no faster, and then assess once I've settled. All being well, that pace will feel good, and then I can just concentrate on maintaining it in the later parts of the race when things start to get tough. Sub 2:45 is my one and only goal really, as running slower than that doesn't really gain me anything. Hopefully, even if I did slow, I'd be able to hang on enough to get a time solidly under 3 hours, which would secure me good for age at London Marathon in 2021. With that said, I'm trying to prepare myself so if I do fall off the 2:45 goal, I don't give up completely. I've been guilty of that in past races and ended up with a time slower than I was capable of because as soon as the target slipped, I mentally gave in. I definitely want to put everything into this race, regardless of the finish time, although fingers crossed it starts with a 2:44. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel, and if you have any questions or anything you'd like me to cover in future videos, please let me know in the comments below. Cheers.